Good evening and welcome to Thursdays with NAMI. My name is Peg Morrison and I'll be your host for the evening. I'm the Director of Programs with NAMI North Carolina. That's the National Alliance on Mental Illness, North Carolina. Thursdays with NAMI is our way of building conversations and building community on the topic of mental health. I'm glad you're all here. So our guest tonight is none other than Joanne McCallie, AKA Coach P, and she's our first bona fide public figure here on Thursdays with NAMI. So it's an exciting evening for everyone. She's one of the elite women's college basketball coaches. She's done a fabulous job. And these days she's turning her intense focus to a new challenge, mental health advocacy. Now that follows a career that put her in a very select group with more than 600 career wins, averaging an impressive 24 wins per season, while bringing teams to more than 20 NCAA tournaments. That's the National Collegiate Athletic Association. So we were thrilled this week when she agreed to serve as NAMI North Carolina's honorary walk chair for our biggest event of the year, the NAMI Walk. The virtual event is scheduled for May 22nd, and we're so grateful to have her here. Also exciting new development, she is sharing her story in a compelling memoir that's just released. It's called Secret Warrior. So she's been a well-known warrior on the basketball court. It turns out she was doing battle behind the scenes as well. Her memoir follows her personal mental health crisis and recovery as she navigated the fiercely competitive world of sports, all while maintaining a stellar career and raising a family. How did she do all that? We will explore that in just one moment. As usual, the first part of our show will be an interview with our guest. About halfway through, we'll show a video of the week, and then we'll spend time answering questions from you, members of our virtual studio audience. Now, real quick, a word from our sponsors. Funding for Thursdays with NAMI comes in part from the North Carolina Division of Mental Health, Developmental Disabilities, and Substance Abuse Services. That comes through the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration as part of the Mental Health Services Block Grant Fund. We are so appreciative of their support. Now, without further ado, it is an honor to welcome tonight's guest. Again, a powerhouse in women's college basketball. Coach B most recently led the Blue Devils to 330 wins in her 13-year tenure, reaching 10 NCAA tournaments and nabbing 3 Atlantic Coast Conference tournament titles. That's pretty big stuff. Those are just a few of her accolades, which are too numerous to list. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Peg. It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yes. So people know of your storied career. Tell us your mental health story in a nutshell.
In a nutshell, I was diagnosed with bipolar when I was 30 years old. It was 1 year after giving birth to my first child, my daughter, and I suffered the only 2 real episodes I've experienced while at the University of Maine as a head coach, on both sides of the coin, mania and depression. And I had to really work through that with my family. There were some events that took place at the University of Maine that some of the players were privy to. Secret Warrior is singular in nature, but very plural, with the warriors that are in the book that make a difference and support me, whether it's my family, my partner, my husband, my family, or the team at the University of Maine. And then it kind of shows how if you can seek balance and really work on it and get to it. I was able to advance on to Michigan State, coach for a national championship in 2005, and then of course have a career that was just amazing at Duke in terms of the women that I worked with and my staffs daily, and that was for 13 years. So it's been a 28-year coaching career. And at 55, it seemed like some events have occurred in my life where I thought, I can't hold this story. I just can't hold it. It's got to be shared. And it's an easy read memoir, but hopefully makes the point and educates and motivates as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is an excellent read. And I was telling Coach P before we started the official program that I read it in one day, and it is a page turner. So I know you'll enjoy it if you pick it up. And for years, you had to be vigilant about privacy because of your coaching career, because of always being in the public eye. How does it feel now that you're able to let that secret go?
Well, it feels it just feels great, to be able to have the book out, the enormous amount of work that has been put into the project, working with John Kohler Books, my publicist, the people that try to promote, the wonderful support we receive from Robin Roberts on Good Morning America, to get the word out so that we can talk about stories over stigmas. It's very important that we get to that point where stories are told, particularly by public figures, by people that have had to balance things in, under the light, so to speak, or on the big stage, or whatever you want to call it, because I do think it can give hope. And although there's a huge continuum of mental health issues, we are not the same. My story is not somebody else's story, but my battling of it and staying with a very challenging career, I think can help people understand. And that's what we want. We want people to learn more and see if the stories can be the thing we talk about, because people can have fabulous health. And the brain is very interesting, but brain health can be achieved.
I think your book is the ultimate stigma buster, and we'll get into that a little later, but you did have some intense experiences and you did have some intense success. I think that will really uplift people and give people hope. So most people I find learn about mental health when life sort of slams it onto their radar. We don't go out of our way oftentimes to learn about mental health. People come to NAMI when they need us personally. How much did you know about bipolar disorder before it became a personal challenge?
Absolutely nothing. I was sideswiped. I was surprised, shocked, stunned. I didn't even understand when the doctor first used the words. I was in denial. I would not recognize that I was in a manic situation, although people around me had noticed a change in behavior. It was just, it was beyond shocking. This was 25 years ago. 25 years ago is very different than now. And we've made a lot of progress. Thanks to NAMI and so many organizations, there's been so much progress, but wow, do we have a ways to go, from this point. So I, like many, was shocked and had to deal with denial issues and had to confront my own, brain health. And being a former student athlete, that's a very difficult thing to do because we think that we can control our bodies as we've done on the basketball court or even coaching. So it was news to me and quite a process.
Right. And in your book, you mentioned the stages of grief that people go through to accept a new situation, a new reality with mental health. I went through that similarly. I lived with depression and anxiety and felt kind of slammed to the ground at different points. I thought that was a really good analogy. You describe your first hospitalization in the book, and that did sound traumatic. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, it was a beautiful Maine day, and my husband knew that something had to be done, and he had gotten together with actually my gynecologist, and they had thought, well, maybe it's time to go to the hospital. And of course, this was a mental hospital in Bangor, Maine. And I, of course, would never have gone if I was told that's what we were doing. So John was very quiet. We took a drive. It was a beautiful fall day, and I thought, wow, this is great. We're taking a drive. And when I asked him where we're going, he said, well, we got to make a stop at a hospital and, we'll go from there. I immediately thought it was John. There was something wrong with John. And so I thought, wow, I need to be a very supportive partner here. And I wonder what's wrong with John. And I mean, when I think about it, I mean, it's almost ridiculous. When I go back and think about it 25 years later, I can kind of chuckle. I can kind of laugh because it was amazing to think how much I was out of the reality of what was happening to me. And sure enough, that took place as we walked in. I thought, my gosh, what are we going to do with John? And then only when I was taken to the floor and they said, John, it's okay for you to leave now. Boy, did that do it. I did a 180 there very quickly. And I felt captured. I felt like my all rights were taken away. And I felt surprised. I felt a lot of betrayal feelings. There was just a lot going on at that point.
I can imagine, absolutely. But that was a turning point for you ultimately, that was a positive direction. How did you rebuild your family trust after that involuntary experience?
Yes, I mean, it was one thing I don't know, was always proud about is that I fought it so hard. I fought them, I fought the doctors, I fought everybody. And I know that's probably not the thing to say, but I just was really so unsure of everything going on around me. It was kind of like a movie. But I did know, when I got more balanced and began to listen and go through a process with my doctor, my therapist, obviously at that point I realized, wow, it was the opposite of what I thought. I mean, I could come to grips. There's a pretty dramatic scene in the hospital. There's a couple of them, but I could come to grips that those things had to happen. There's a reason why I'm a coach. I'm a competitor and I'm a fighter, and I was not going to give up without swinging, in terms of the whole situation. But obviously later, I became rational and understood what was needed.
And then I like the way you brought your team into your recovery. It was very touching, a lot of touching relationships and stories. How did you rebuild yourself after that first manic episode?
Well, it seemed to take, it was sort of immediate, and then it's taken years. It's both sides of the coin. Immediate meaning I got very busy with the team. I dove into my family, I dove into the team and kept a very routine and strict schedule, allowing for my swimming time, my exercise time, my work, my practice, my films, and all the things that we do with the team, and keeping a very rigorous sleep schedule, and just monitoring things, and having, being very fortunate to have support. It breaks my heart, and my heart goes out to a lot of people out there that are alone, that are living alone and don't have somebody in the home to be able to lean on and talk to and recognize different things. So anyway, I just really took to it initially until I started to feel better. And then
Right.
yeah, and then I thought I knew better. And then,
Right.
yeah, and then came, well, my comeuppance, so to speak, and not listening to my doctors and not taking my medication.
And that's very typical. Your story is so typical. The shock and awe phase in NAMI, we sort of spell out these phases similar to the stages of grief, and then coming to terms with the new reality, and then moving into advocacy. Your story parallels that perfectly, actually. And you started to talk about your second episode. Do you want to expound on that a little bit?
Sure. It just a situation where I felt so much better. We continued to win championships and have success. The team was very forgiving. We never talked about bipolar. We just talked about that Coach P had suffered from exhaustion, which was true. That was part of it. But we kept it very simple and easy and moved forward. Things went very well for us. And I thought, my gosh, I feel great. I think I'm done with this bipolar thing. And I just actually, though, I must have known, and I did know it was not right, because I didn't tell anybody. I didn't tell anyone that I had decided to go off my medication. And I had been warned about such things by very good doctors. And when you least expect it, the way it came around, it was a depressive episode. And it was one of those episodes where reading the paper was strange and difficult to complete the paragraphs and entertain the story. It was anxiety-ridden depression where the simplest tasks were extraordinarily difficult. And I felt I was in sort of a different world. Unlike mania, I didn't identify it as bipolar. In my brain, I was sort of like, what is this? What is this element? And of course, it was explained to me, you're on the other side. You've switched over here. And again, I needed to take some time. I was definitely more willing as a patient at that time to listen. I could see that I was hurting the people I loved the most. It was very clear that I had hurt people, my family members, and of course my team. And so I got to it very quickly in terms of getting on meds, following my doctor's orders exactly, and also recognizing that yes, in fact, I am a bipolar individual, and this is who I am, and it doesn't have to define who I am, but I've got to take my medicine.
Mhm. Yeah, and there's a very vivid moment when you're coming to the realization that I need to get back on medication. You said you're at a game, the game wasn't going well. You said I could see fear in my players' eyes. And that really struck me that,
Yeah.
mental health affects the whole family, it affects the whole team, and you can feel that.
Yeah, there's an energy to it. And again, I got depressive and quiet. People think that people go crazy with these episodes. My depressive episode was I was very quiet. I didn't say a lot. I didn't act my normal self relative to my enthusiasm. I was stepping back away from shooting practice. And a team knows their coach and a coach knows the team. And energetically, they could definitely pick up, what is wrong. If I had raised my hand and said, I have the flu, and lied about it, they would have accepted that because I kind of looked like I had the flu. But for me, I was trying to be my authentic self in a state where my medicines were not, I was not back on my medicine enough for everything to be working smoothly. And it cost us the game by a lot of points. And I lost their trust in that time and had to spend time talking with the team about it, as well as my family. And again, we just don't learn all the time. We are stubborn people. People can be stubborn. I was very stubborn. After the second episode, I've been very fortunate. I know people cycle differently. I know there are different stories. A woman reached out to me and said, "You're so fortunate because you had the two episodes, but it didn't continue for you." And I cycle much more rapidly in this type of thing. And all I could do is say, I get it completely. My story is my story, and other stories can be much more pronounced or not. But I think that we're all in a story and that we all have parts to tell. And so hopefully in sharing my part, it'll help in some kind of way.
Mhm, mhm. And as you say in the book, going back to sharing with your players and sharing with the public, coaches must be authentic, but they cannot appear weak. How did you walk that fine line?
Yeah, it's a tough one because we can be humble and yes, authentic, but to be vulnerable is often viewed as a weakness. There's been a lot of discussion in leadership now about how vulnerability can be such a critical piece to opening up dialogue. Well, I can assure you, 25 years ago, vulnerability was no part of the dialogue relative to leadership. I
Right.
mean, none. And you were supposed to be that strong woman role model. I was supposed to be somebody that they could model after me. I needed to be strong. I needed to be on it. It was not a sense of trying to be perfect, but in a way it was, balance my life. I'm having a child. Here's my family. Yes, we're going to coach. Yes, we're going to win championships. We're going to have 5,500 fans come out every night. We're going to public speak. We're going to travel the state and no problem. Everything's no problem. And that's not realistic. And that was more leadership, do, keep doing, and then potentially overdo, which is what I did. So I'm really happy to see the models of leadership growing and changing as they are today.
Sure. And I'm sure the pressure was additional for you because you were a woman. It was a more sexist time.
Mhm.
You're establishing yourself as a female leader in the sports arena that's traditionally got that male
Mhm.
value system all over it.
Yeah, it was. I think so. I mean, I fought for gender equity so much, relative to what was available at the University of Maine for salaries for my assistant coaches, for budgets. You were right in the middle of fighting for what you believed to be very important and equity across the board, and that was also on my shoulders. By the time I left the University of Maine, not only was I fortunate enough to be healthy and balanced, but we had so many changes to budgets and salary and opportunity that the program was where it needed to be. And so on top of all the things, I really felt that I had that torch, that gender equity torch that I was to carry. And that was an awesome responsibility and one I took very seriously, but at the same time too, I overworked it. I tried to overcompensate by doing more talks and going more places and having a fundraiser where we had Cheryl Swoops, come, this famous basketball player, come speak. And, we really worked it hard. And unfortunately, those were some of the triggers that worked against me and educated me on my own brain health.
Right. Sure. It sounds like you absorbed that pressure into yourself and
Mhm.
just, yeah, carried that weight yourself. And I'm sure it benefited many people in doing so, but yeah, there's a price to pay. Um, But now you're sharing your story and giving that away too, that insight and that win ultimately. So that's kind of wonderful. So along the way, did you receive any coaching from loved ones that was especially helpful or unhelpful?
I think everyone tries to be very supportive, but there is this incredible shame blame thing, as we all know. Where did this come from? Is this genetic? Who did you get this from? Almost like catching a cold. Where did you get this? And I found those questions very, very difficult. It was not something I wanted to talk about. I was trying to cope with what I needed to do daily. And so there were many well-meaning questions, and then there are, of course, lots of people that don't know what to say. So that's another segment of adjustment. So it was a difficult time. And it was really years later. I had a lot of good things said, and I certainly had great support. But it was many years later at Michigan State where I had a colleague, and I was talking with him, and we had just been in a national championship. And I decided to tell him more about me. I don't really know why I did at that time. But he just looked at me and said, it's not your fault. And the way he said it, the tempo of how he said it, I was mouth agape, because I realized that I had factored in that it could have been my fault, that I did this to me, that I was the person that was responsible. And for anyone who's listening to this, I hope you know that, you're not alone, which we talk about a lot, but critically, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. And when you get to that space of truly believing that, it separates from you just enough where you can manage it better and not take it on so personally and not have it define you.
Right. That's such a powerful message. That came from the sports psychiatrist, if I remember correctly.
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah. I didn't know there was such a thing, but what a wonderful moment.
Yeah, it really was. And I think that I think psychologists are wonderful and therapists, but sports psychiatry is fascinating. And really, it's just psychiatrists who are medical doctors, as you know, but that love sports and can engage in just training the mind. And we had that benefit at Michigan State. It was one of the reasons why in 5 years we played for a national championship. I mean, it was rapid growth and opportunity there. But I just want people to know, and I say that a lot when I speak, and, it's not your fault, but it is now your choice. It's not your fault, but it is your choice on what you do with it, and how you cope and how you strategize, and how you educate yourself enough to know so that you can feel where your brain is the best you can, and also set up your support system.
Mhm. Yeah, my own wiring is kind of similar. I think to myself, it's not my fault, but it's my responsibility. No one else is going to fix this.
Mhm.
So it
Mhm.
is very challenging. Um, so, as you say in the book, oh, I already asked that one. You use the recurring theme of faith over fear in talking about reducing the stigma of mental illness. Could you say more about that?
Yes, I think everyone's faith is their own unique and personal thing, whether it's faith in God, whether it's faith in karma or spirituality. I just know for me, I had had some health issues prior, after being diagnosed a long time ago, but then having melanoma and just dealing with other issues. And at that point in my life, I found myself praying. I'm not sure who I was praying to or exactly what I was praying about. I had studied a little bit of Buddhism, type of thing, and just a little bit. And at the same time, I was learning about life and faith. And to make a long story short, I became a late Christian in my older years. And if I'm kind of being sort of funny, a Buddhist Christian, which doesn't really make any sense. But the point is, always been very spiritual, but needed guidance. And I felt that in reading the Bible, it's such an incredible book that even if you're not religious at all, like, you should read it, because it's incredible, in what it shares and what it brings to you from the inside out. So I try to tell some stories with a sense of humor in the book, relative to being 50, over 50, talking about getting a tattoo, over
Right.
50. And And I do believe that you should wait till you're over 50 for tattoos, because you just don't know until you're over 50 what exactly you want to tattoo. If you,
I like that. Yeah, you won't have so much time to learn to regret it. I have a tattoo of a bird on my shoulder. Actually, it was when I realized at some point that I would be okay after a long depression.
oh,
I got this bird of hope image on my shoulder.
were
But
you,
yeah,
were you over 50?
I'm gonna say yeah for this purpose.
That is a perfect bird. That's a great bird.
Yeah. Note from Gary in the chat box. I love Buddhist Christianity. So again, you're not alone. Were there any defining moments in your recovery that strike you?
I think the defining moment for me was while I was at Maine. This was midway through, I was there 8 years. So by year 5, I had gone through so much, and I considered myself very balanced, and also handling my situation and understanding my bipolar story. So then when we had success, the highest level of success, meaning we beat Stanford in the NCAA tournament, and this just does not happen, Maine beating Stanford. I really could see that how natural I was and authentic after evaluating myself so much. And one of my counselors said to me, our therapist said, Joanne, if you just stay in there and go through this, you're going to be better than most people. You know, her argument was people like you have done so much self-analysis that you're more balanced than just the person on the street. And she was very much an advocate of how your mind could become more healthy, could grow in a way. You're being intuitive, understanding situations, empathic, and I know that's not for everyone, but that's what happened to me. I was able to read my players better, be there for my players in a better way, be more patient in a better way. It added to my coaching ability. I was a better mother. There were so many things I just was better at. So my 8 years at Maine was an incredible experience. And then, of course, I was just able to take it from there.
Right. That makes so much sense to me because we have to get to know ourselves. We have to do that work. And we come out, maybe with some more insights, more empathy or patience. That definitely resonates. What do you say to people who are currently struggling with a mental health challenge, but no, they do not want treatment?
Yeah, I tell them I perfectly understand. I would tell them, okay, let's take a minute and say we're not going to do this. And then when that minute's over, let's change the path. You absolutely have to have a moment of understanding that no, I don't want to do this. I don't want medicine in my body. I don't trust this. Say it. I don't trust this. I don't trust my doctor. Say it, get it out. But understanding getting it out that you're going to start to assume responsibility. And it's that crossover. And that's that's a huge part of me coming out, so to speak, is wanting to coach people. They changed my tag on social media, Coach P for life. If I can coach, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a therapist. I can't do all these other things that people can do. But one thing I can do is motivate, communicate, and coach. And I've already been coaching people on the telephone, people calling me and asking me, my mom is bipolar. Can you help me understand this? An athlete, football player, I'm about to read your book. I've only been diagnosed a year and I don't like it. These kinds of conversations, which are private, but certainly coming from a coach perspective. And that's what I hope to offer, is that ability for people to have someone who has coached in a national championship and understands the passion.
Yeah.
I even had someone ask me, I'm in a high pressure job. Do I need to leave it?
Yeah.
And I said, wait a minute, are you not doing well in your high pressure job? And the answer was, oh no, I'm doing quite well. And I said, what are you thinking? And so I guess, having something for 25 years and talking to somebody that has it for 1 year, I mean, what an opportunity. And if we don't tell our stories, then how can there be mentorship? So then that's the next hashtag, mentorship matters. I'm a walking hashtag. I mean, stories over stigmas. Be good to you. Mentorship matters, but it's true. These things must stick in our heads, and we must be able to act on them.
I can definitely see that you've walked a journey that an athlete with a mental health challenge would find really beneficial. So, and if you don't happen to have that connection, personal connection, or you're not an elite level athlete, or, maybe Coach P is getting way too many calls, you can call the NAMI helpline.
Absolutely.
And absolutely.
I hope to connect with that. I want to be fortified. When I get this done, and if we get this podcast and get this mental health foundation, there's all these little things that need to happen. And NAMI, and recognizing what NAMI has done statewide, nationwide, all of that is of great interest to me.
Well, you'll be a very powerful voice. So I'm love hearing that. And again, we were so excited to hear this week that you would be involved with our NAMI walk. What makes that important to you?
Well, it's been important, and I've been the chair before with the team. And so that was a wonderful opportunity to bring the team to the walk and just do it together, the Duke women. It was special. We've had the mental health games at Duke. We had two of those.
Right.
And this one is unique because I'm able to be more of who I am. There was no mention of me being bipolar or anything of the sort. And it was a teammate's situation that brought me into the whole mental health piece when, my teammate's daughter took her life. And that was the impetus for me saying, Joanne, you can't sit on this story. You have got to become action oriented. So even the mental health games at Duke, I mean, they were directed in a certain area of suicide and of that horrible choice that too many young people and older people have made. And so was very important to me to be able to do that. So this walk will be extra special to be able to be a little bit more clear about who I am, and then whoever we can help along the way.
Mhm. Yeah, we did participate in the mental health game. We had a table and we met so many young people, which is a demographic we're trying to connect with. So that was wonderful. And I think Pooja Mita was the walk manager.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
That was my first walk in North Carolina. So that was a big year for me too. What gives you hope?
Oh, stories. I love stories. I love reading. I love writing, actually. It was quite a tall task to write that book. That's why I laugh when people say they read it, so fast. I'm like, wow, it took a long time to write that. But my hope is, filled with us sharing stories, the kindness of how we can be towards each other, the incredible fascination we can have with the brain. Can it be a little bit more of a fascination, not a letdown, not a disappointment? Our brains are beautiful, and they are quite capable of so many interesting things. And can we take that scientific approach, but can we match it with that emotional support for each other? And can we tell the stories enough? Sometimes you just get little blurbs, so-and-so's bipolar, and then it just disappears like into the sunset. I think we need a lot more than that. I think we need the hardcore stories and the actions that have been taken and the feelings that have been felt during the process. And so this for me is not just write the book and walk away. The book is a beginning. And so I have great hope. And obviously the more Secret Warrior catches on, the more there's dialogue. I mean, going on Good Morning America with Robin was truly one of the most greatest personal experiences of my life. But the reality is the people that we were able to touch, no audience is big enough. People have asked me, well, what would you like to do? I said, well, just the biggest audience possible. Whoever could be possibly listening and could take a nugget or two or help one person. I mean, one life out of all of the work we do. And Peg, I know you have a passion for the work that you do, but I think that's how we think. If we can just, save one life, not save is too strong of a word, but impact and direct and help and guide, then we have done what we set out to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's probably no better feeling in the world than having someone say, I read your story and it helped me, or I heard you speak and it helped me. And I know that many people will be helped by your story, your vulnerability and the fact that you went through so much, that part of your recovery was traumatic with the hospitalization, and then you still rose to such heights. That's very powerful. And the fact that your family sort of wrapped themselves around you and encouraged your recovery in different ways. I think there are a lot of lessons and insights that will have a strong, strong impact. So my 2 cents.
And I think the partners, my husband and other partners, have quite a bit to tell as well. I'm surprised that more people haven't asked to interview my husband. He's kind of shy. It's not what he does, but his the whole aspect of being a chemistry major at North Carolina and looking at this from a chemistry point of view, like he kept thinking, okay, we've got a chemical issue here. This is solvable. And the way his brain thought and the way he communicated with me left little room for me not to follow, because it just, reason over emotion in the grandest sense of trying to break down and simplify what was needed in the science of it all.
Mhm. Yeah, chemistry and economics, that's those are tough subjects that he was a master of. Golly. Interesting stuff. Yeah, that it was interesting too, how you pulled different insights of people in your life, your players, your husband, into your story, because it is a tapestry.
It is.
Always. So were you inspired by a particular book or a particular person in your life?
Yes, I've definitely been inspired by many of the mentors I've had, just the people, the teachers, the teachers, the coaches, of course, my parents, and we talk about those things. But there was one book that stuck with me, and I love tennis, but didn't play it in high school. I do play it now. But Arthur Ashe and his book, Days of Grace, to me, for whatever reason, when I read that, and I can't quite remember when that came out, but I read it and it's like I reread it, and it was something happening to him outside his control in an area that was really forbidden. Again, the whole AIDS epidemic and everything about AIDS, I mean, all of that at that time. And I just remember that resonating with me, but not really knowing why. I mean, it was sort of fascinating when I think back on it, because event outside of your control, and yet dealing and coping with judgment. And there's a lot of that can go on out there, and it's very, very painful. So that was one of the books that really hit me hard. And there's been several other books in my life, and but I really do admire journeys, and powerful, strong women figures or male figures, I mean, that have dealt with something outside of their control.
That was Days.
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, Days of Grace. Was that the title?
Days of Grace by Arthur Ashe. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. And he was he the first really major African American tennis player? Right.
Yes,
Okay.
Arthur Ashe Stadium at the US Open, which I want to go to sometime.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love tennis. Oh, I tried very hard to get a tennis endorsement. I'm very proud of the people that endorsed the book, and there are stories behind those endorsements that are interesting, but I tried hard in the tennis world.
All right. You'll get there. You'll get there. You'll get many more. All right. Well, we're kind of buzzing through these questions. Is there, before we move to answering questions from our virtual studio audience, is there anything you'd like to add? Something I did not ask?
Oh, no, Peg, your questions are great. And it's so invigorating to sit with you, knowing you've read the book, you've gone through it, and you've had the feelings, and the points that you're bringing up are just very special to me. And I'm here to share, and I love to answer questions if people want to ask them. I think that's the best way to go, to see if we can be helpful.
Okay, great. Well, at this point of our program, we move on to our video of the week, kind of a little bright spot because we tend to discuss heavier things. As we make this transition, I want to give a shout out to our mental health intern patients, Greg, and psychiatric nurse Gail Pruitt, who are on our chat box, executive director Gary Kreitz for always being there. And of course, thanks to Coach P for spending your evening with us and for sharing your story, which is wonderful. All right. So for the video, A Secret Warrior was uplifting in so many ways. And one thing that touched me the most, as I mentioned, was story after story of women supporting other women. So I like this video. I couldn't find one specific to basketball, but I really like how this shows women learning to be their best selves through sports. Okay, so a nice testament to women in sports. And we have one of the heroes of women in sports, Coach P, to take your questions. All right, so if you're new to Zoom, you might not know how to ask a question. There's an icon with little conversation bubble at the bottom of your monitor. Type your question there, it will magically be delivered to us. First comments. This is such a great interview. Thank you. Will it be available for view later? I would love for some relatives to see it. That's an easy answer. Yes, it will be on Facebook Live, and also it will be on YouTube within a week or so. So thank you for that, anonymous attendee. Next one is from Gary. The pressure of Division I athletics, especially in top tier schools, can be unrelenting for student coaches or for student athletes and coaches. How can universities support coaches and students through that anxiety, especially those who are dealing with diagnosable mental illnesses?
Yeah, that is a terrific question. It's also the magic question. And there are different support systems at different universities, depending upon resources. It is so important that more is talked about in a day-to-day manner and also availability. There are times where people need support and it takes too long to get an appointment with a psychiatrist. There's an overload. And I feel strongly that in athletic departments, we can do more. Part of having the mental health games was to shake things up a little bit and allow for some awareness. There was also a student athlete at Northwestern, my alma mater, who took her life, a women's basketball player, another motivator for learning to communicate and also have the resources available. Psychologists, great, sports psychologists, great, but where is the backup to that? I think there needs to be a much higher connection between the psychologist and a psychiatrist working jointly together, because when medicine comes into play, there cannot be this awesome delay, which there can be in order to get all the bases covered. Communication with the coaches that protects privacy, of course, number one, but you can talk with a coach and help a coach by instructing them the best method of which to communicate other things to a student athlete, not the medical part. But there are ways that we can all benefit coaching up each other. And coaches can do a better job there by being able to listen and modify their coaching style individually, which you very much have to do in order to be successful. But there are so many pieces right now, and I think it's a big puzzle. And I think some of the pieces fit and some of them don't. And it's when that puzzle gets put together, you will maximize efficiency and save lives relative to having access to help at universities, and certainly then we hope everywhere else.
Yeah, a lot of layers to that for sure. And it is something universities and schools, really all organizations, need to look at and invest in. So a question from our virtual studio audience. Thank you. Does Duke or did Duke, when you were there, have a NAMI or an Active Minds chapter?
To my knowledge, no. Now I don't want to misspeak because what I remember is that our attachment to NAMI started with the walk, and that was started from women's basketball. And to my knowledge, again, memory wise, that had not been done before. I know that there were no mental health games of any sort, or we had the Kay Yao breast cancer game, which is so important, and she's so amazing. And then we had a player's mom die of melanoma. We had a melanoma game, Polka Dot Mama. And so, in keeping with that grassroots approach, I believe that we women's basketball brought the mental health issue more to the forefront. But NAMI can do many more things, I think, and connect more, and universities can connect more with NAMI.
Right. I believe there is a chapter now. So this year, but it changes, the students turn over. So you try to get a NAMI on campus going, and you build as well as you can, considering they're leaving.
And the coaches have to get involved, right? Because they are on campus, pretty much, pretty consistently. I mean, I was at Duke for 13 years, so it's a lot of pieces. It just can't fall to the student athletes. Like, a lot of people have to be involved.
Yeah, that would be a wonderful connection to have. Gary notes in the chat box, we just started NAMI on campus at NC Central University. That was a very exciting development. And a comment from someone too, we just had Dan Gillison, the CEO of NAMI nationally, recently speak at Duke. So a lot of cool stuff going on in the colleges.
Perfect.
Yeah. So we just have Coach P for a limited while. If you want to get your questions going, please do so. This question was posed to me by one of my coworkers. Was there a particular part of your story that was hardest to share?
I think interviewing the student athletes was the hardest to cope with and also share, because I found out through interviewing them the holes that I left unfilled for them, in terms of they not realizing what I was going through, or maybe did I help them enough go through the situation. So I'm speaking about the Maine women and the ones that went through the episodes, and they're in the book, whether it's Cindy Blodgett or Amy Vachon or Stephanie Guidi. And I had longer interviews that I had to break down, and I had to hear what they saw. And they were so loyal and so supportive, but I felt so incredibly responsible for putting them in a precarious position. But then on the flip side, there were such strong women that they rose to the occasion. And so there was sort of this back and forth between fear and anxiety of what I caused, again, that causal thing. And then also this incredible, such a time as this, meaning how they stood up and how they represented and even pushed their parents away, did not want people involved. They wanted to figure this out with their coach. And I'm not sure that would happen today. I'm really not. I'm not sure today. Things are so transient, and people come and people go, and there's not as much loyalty. And that's something I'll never forget, what that feeling is. And it certainly made me an even more loyal person. But those women taught me so much. And it was very hard to interview them and to come to grips with them, and then to quote some of the things I quoted from them.
That takes a lot of courage, that level of transparency and being willing to sort of investigate and interview folks from your past. And I don't want to do any spoilers, but there is a really special story of how the team came together after your first hospitalization. Yeah, I don't want to say too much, but read the book, because it's a pretty cool story. Yeah. All right. So, question from the box. You're in recovery. Does that mean you are still bipolar but managing it with medication? And how did you achieve recovery?
Yes, I would say I've been in recovery for 25 years, meaning you recover. And I think my recovery occurred at the University of Maine, and it took me a good four years of really hard work, the length of time to get a college degree. for me to understand bipolar and understand who I was. From there, bipolar kind of goes in its spot. It does not define you. I will always be a person who has bipolar, but it was never in the forefront of my life until now, where I could really, talk about it and write a book and be clear about it. And so I've been taking meds for many, many years, just like people do for heart trouble or diabetes or anything else. And it's been a wonderful and stable lifestyle with my children, with my family and my teams. But it goes back to that time when I was 30 years old. And that 30-year-old to about 34 was a critical time for me. And I was very fortunate to be at the University of Maine at that time.
Mhm. So much going on for you in your life at that time. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, a lot. Yeah.
So I'll ask this question for myself. I've started a memoir and I have about 140 pages written and I'm a little bit stuck. What was your process like with writing your story?
Well, I spent a lot of time thinking about it prior. So when I was 39, I thought I might write it because we had gone to a national title. We kind of were on the big stage of women's basketball. And I thought maybe people would listen. Maybe this would be a good time. Turns out I had a lot of coaching to do. That wasn't the best time to do it. And I don't think I was mature enough either. So I've had a lot of years to kind of think about what I would do. And then when our team had a fabulous season in my last season, we finished third in the conference. ACC is super tough. And we were all going to the NCAA tournament. And then, as you know, everything stopped, the pandemic, right? Everything stopped. When that occurred, we had to be home a lot. We had to do many, many Zooms and recruit and do all the things that we do. But we also were home a lot. And so when I took breaks, I would exercise, yes, but I would write. And I started writing it. And it just came out very, very quickly. It was very focused. And by the way, I had never used computers. Everyone had
Oh my
all.
goodness.
Oh yeah. My son being at home during the pandemic is probably the single reason this book was written, because I couldn't even do a Word document. I couldn't do anything.
Wow.
And I'm embarrassed to say that, but it's true because I've been so well taken care of. My administrative assistants at Duke, at Michigan State. I mean, I was fortunate. People did a lot of things for me so I could concentrate on coaching. So here I was with a computer. I mean, to this day, I make people Zoom me. Like, I don't Zoom people. Like, I don't want that.
Right.
I don't want that responsibility. But so anyway, it took a lot of technical learning
Sure.
and also the creative part. I mean, you should have seen me when they sent me my digital arc and they told me I had to put these sticky notes into my arc in order to edit it. I mean, I was like, are you kidding me? Like, can't I just talk to somebody on the phone and do the edits? So there are many, many stories about the writing of the book. And in my acknowledgments, I clearly say that my son, without him, it probably wouldn't have been written. And by August 5th, it was written. So from that whole April, May, June to August 5th, and then of course, getting a publisher and all that was another story. So it was quite a journey and one I recommend. It sounds like you're well on your way.
Well, thank you. It is a challenging task and it does take it's a deep dive. It's like, wow, how much do I want to share and where do I want to go with this? But we have many more questions lining up here. This one is from our Facebook Live viewer, so this is wonderful. If one of them, I don't know how many Facebook Live viewers we have, if the person with bipolar disorder says he can handle himself without medication and the doctor, without medication and the doctor for a few because he knows how this disorder is, can you recommend family can help him? I'm a little confused by that. Maybe you're.
Well, I think I get it. And the answer is no, do not go alone. If you're bipolar, you need medication. And yes, you can sure try. And the energy you would take trying to balance the mood situations, the sleep that you need is energy taken away from all these other things you can do, including energy to love other people and energy to be able to care and be empathetic and see other people. And so I know, I mean, I've thought of that myself as well. Well, I'm not that bipolar. I can kind of wing it, so to speak. I've had that thought. And I think most people that are diagnosed have also had that thought. But the answer is no. Trust your doctors, do what you need to do, and stay on a pathway of health, and share that with your family. And your family cannot watch you in perpetuity. They can't be the ones to say and take the responsibility. So it might sound enticing. And I know that famous artists, Vincent van Gogh and others that were bipolar, they talked about going off their meds. I mean, the wonderful character, Carrie Matheson in Homeland, who actually goes off of her meds. So she gets in those sort of Svengali-like mental states where she solves all sorts of very important issues. It's very attractive character. I've reached out to her, Claire Danes, because the character is incredible. But what she suffers tremendously when she takes that on her own and takes her brain health into her own hands, and she's not able to be a mother. There's not enough of you to go around if you're managing yourself and thinking you can do it by yourself. And that is clearly demonstrated in Homeland, in that character. And Carrie Matheson is a character that so many people can relate to that are certainly not bipolar.
Okay, well, thank you for giving me something to bump to the top of my streaming list.
Yes.
Land with Claire Danes. I love her.
Yeah.
All right. I would agree with that. I understand that some people can walk the recovery journey without medication. I tried for many years. I tried St. John's Wort. I jogged. I joined Toastmasters. I meditated. I needed medication.
Yeah.
If you want to try going off, please don't do it without a doctor's guidance, because if you just quit cold turkey, you'll get flu-like symptoms, depending on your medication. You don't want to do that alone. Seriously, please don't do that alone. Okay. And from Facebook also, stigma is such a barrier to seeking help. What changes have you seen in addressing this problem at universities?
I've seen the younger generations, not the older ones, not as much administration as I've seen young people today, ages, I don't know, 20 to 26 maybe, that they have much more of an open view. And this is one of the incredible, beautiful things about this generation. We talk a lot about all the complications with social media and all of that, and that's a lot of that's true. But the reality is younger folks are stepping forward. Some of the WNBA players have been fantastic, given their age, their experience, stepping forth with some of their own stories and helping remove stigmas. And stigma is, it's there. Of course it is there, but it's like anything else. It's like a tug of war. And the more people you put on the story side pulling, the more people on that side are going to win the tug of war. And so that we got to fill up. There aren't enough stories. There aren't enough stories to be told, but not just that somebody is bipolar or does have mental health issues. What are they doing? What are they doing with it? And can they share it? And if you can't share it, that's perfectly fine. Keep it where, write about it, keep it for you. But if you're capable of sharing and you can help educate, I can tell you it's a very freeing experience. And it's a very special time if you reach that point in your life.
Absolutely. Yeah, I like that. And if you can't share it publicly, that's fine, but find a circle of people you can trust. Attend a NAMI support group. Find someone where you can be yourself. You need that liberating safe space. It's important. Okay, here we go. Did you have more children after your diagnosis and taking meds? That is in the book.
It is in the book. Read the book. Buy a hardcover, by the way. But the answer to the question is yes, I did. I successfully had a child while taking medication, and I covered that in the book. I think it's a very important part of the book. Motherhood, we do not want it denied to mothers, and there's some stories I tell about it in the book. Some of the things I have trepidation about, concern about, and it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy to do, but we were able to do it and would do it again. And so I want mothers out there that are bipolar to know that yes, you too can have a child. It just takes a little bit extra, and there are some risks, but there are risks involved with everything. And so that's the way we viewed it, and we're very fortunate to have two beautiful children, and certainly one while I was diagnosed and bipolar.
Very good. A lighter Question from Gary. Do you consider yourself a black bear, a wildcat, a Spartan, or a blue devil?
I love that person asking that question. It's so funny. My son was, conceived a black bear, born a Spartan. So that answers for him. But for me, you have to throw in Auburn in there. And then I'm a big Nick Saban Alabama fan. So I don't make any sense. I mean, you're talking Auburn, War Eagle, you're talking Roll Tide, you're talking Go Cats at Northwestern, go green, go white. You're talking about Black Bears and of course, Go Duke. I mean, I got a thick, long story of athletic teams, and there's a story behind every one of them. And the one that nobody can really believe or like is the Auburn, Alabama one, because one of my hopes and dreams is to be able to go to universities and talk to students and student athletes. But one of the things I love to do is go to like Alabama first and then go to Auburn, go to Michigan State and then go to Michigan, go to Duke and then go to Carolina. And why, you may ask? Because you have to have fun and you have to show fun, and competition is fun. Mm-hmm. So it's sort of like a madness, not March Madness, but a madness relative to the competition between the different schools. And that's something I'm talking with my publicist about, my agent, and how do we get some fun in this whole concept of mental health?
How can we stir that pot? I love that. As you were talking to, I got this image of like a Franken mascot, like all of them sort of blended together somehow. So that was from Executive Director Gary Kreitz, and he loved the idea of the rivalry visits on mental health. So if I want to share my story, where do I start? This question is from someone here on Zoom. I did just start going to NAMI, but do you have other suggestions?
Oh, well, I can only say that if you want to share your story, please make sure that you've written it down. Write about it. First, verbalize it to very dear friends and family that love you. Verbalize it and write it. It's really helpful to do that. You have to prepare yourself to go public in a way. It's just like getting in shape to run a marathon. It's the best example I can give you. You wouldn't just go run a marathon. You would work at it. You would prepare yourself mentally and physically. And so I encourage you to do that. And then you kind of know when it's time. The timing sort of takes care of itself. And then of course you can publish articles. It doesn't have to be a book. It can be an article. You can volunteer with NAMI or any other organization. You can do so many different things and find the right way to share your story.
Okay. So if you notice me moving around, my dog is here and she's trying to knock over my lamp. That's kind of a fun little aside.
Dogs are great. Oh boy, dogs are great.
Yeah, they are fun. So Randy, you can also get trained in Inner Own Voice, which is a NAMI program. You can look at the NAMI NC website to find out how to get your training, which is free, and also on Zoom. So clearly you're using Zoom already. Another note from Gary, I am a Blue Devil Buckeye. And Randy says, thank you, the asker of the how do I do public speaking question. All right. So thank you everyone for your participation. We do have time for more questions if you'd like to send them. I am going to take this opportunity to mention our next week's speaker, another author, more of an everyday recovery story. He wrote a book called Heart of Rescue. He's a NAMI Wake County member and a Wake Forest resident. His name is John Towns. So please join us for that. It's a story of recovery from bipolar and managing anxiety, a lot of wonderful insights. So I have another good book to read. And when you close out of this Zoom program, there will be a survey. Please help us out by answering the satisfaction survey. Tell Coach P what a wonderful speaker she is and help us out. It allows us to show our funders the value of what we do when you answer our surveys. So I appreciate that very much. And last call for questions. Sometimes we go the full 90 minutes. Sometimes we go an hour. We kind of go with the energy of the group. Thank you so much for being here, Coach P. This is from Executive Director Gary Kreitz. You're one of my heroes. And I think really you are a stellar advocate. You're in such a great position to make a difference, and I'm thrilled that you made that choice. Susan Goodman has a question. Do you worry that what people might think of you as being bipolar? Do you worry about stigma, basically?
I definitely do not worry now what people think of me, but perhaps I might have if I had in an earlier situation come out about my situation and then lost job opportunities because of it. I might have become a person very disgruntled or unsure of myself. So my timing for my situation was very important to me at the right time to come out and talk about it. And so I don't mind what other people think. And I like to smile and I'm a very happy person. And I think a lot of that is needed. We will never make light of our brains and what goes on up there. But at the same time, too, we have to really funnel great energy to each other. And so that's what I feel. I feel a lot of great energy. I had a friend tell me once that, Joanne, when you come out with this, you won't just be a basketball coach anymore. You'll be the basketball coach who had bipolar, and you most likely will be defined by it. And I thought about that. And I thought about that was a very good comment. And I said, you know what? That just means I can coach more people, doesn't it? And the answer was, well, yes, you can. You can either coach a team or you can broaden it and try to coach a whole lot of people if you're up for it. And that's how that conversation went. And I feel very happy with our decision. Of course, it's a family decision. And I think people might look at me differently, and that's okay. They can.
My goodness, what a wonderful answer. Yeah, you've expanded your reach to potentially 20% of the population, because that is the number, according to the mental health first aid folks, that experiences symptoms of a mental illness in any given year in the United States. So a lot of kudos. Thank you for sharing your story. You're so honest and inspiring and awesome. Thank you. So a lot of wonderful comments coming here. It feels like it's time for us to wrap up. So I want to thank you so very much.
Can I add one thing, Peg? When we talk about percentages, and they're so important, when we look at people that are attached in some way, directly or indirectly, to anything mental health, those numbers, as you know, balloon. I mean, to over 50%. I mean, people, it can be distant, it can be direct, it can be family or non-family. And that's the percentages we need to start to think about, because we can be selective. We can choose different mental health issues and have percentages represented, or we can talk a lot about brain health. And the survivors of brain health include the surrounding folks, as you know. I mean, Peg, you know all this, but as we're talking with people tonight, there's a lot of everybody that's heard about mental health. And so it's okay. We want to flip the umbrella. It's like medicine is special, everyone who's in medicine, but the umbrella is turned upside down right now, where mental health, psychiatry, and things of that nature are not valued like surgery. And so what's a good surgery on an arm if you don't have your mind? Mm-hmm. And so we want to take the umbrella that's sort of upside down right now, and we want to flip it and have mental health over all of the medicines. Mm-hmm. And we can do that. And that's going to take big steps. But I tell you what, psychiatrists who can figure out just little nuances with your brain health and your medicine, you can't tell me that isn't as precise and exact as any kind of surgeon, and certainly as life-saving.
Thank you for that. That's an excellent point. There's probably nobody who's not at all affected by mental health. My initial thought was, wow, the percentage of basketball players versus the percentage of folks with mental health challenges, but absolutely everyone is affected. So thank you for that. And Don, I appreciate you so much. Yeah, I loved the book and I loved this conversation. You've made a lot of inspiring points. And thanks to everyone for joining us tonight. It's been a great show. Please join us next week. We'll be looking for you.